You wake up before sunrise. The air is cold. Your stomach is empty. There is no table waiting for you, no cereal, no coffee, no refrigerator humming in the background. Around you, the camp is quiet except for the crackle of dying embers and the distant sounds of animals moving through the darkness. Hunger is present, but nobody seems concerned by it. In fact, your ancestors often began the day this way. That simple scene describes a pattern that shaped human life for hundreds of thousands of years. Many people today assume breakfast is the most natural meal of the day. Yet for most of human history, eating immediately after waking was far from guaranteed. The daily rhythm of your ancestors was built around opportunity, movement, risk, and uncertainty. Understanding that reality reveals something surprising about the relationship between hunger, energy, and the human body. Modern life makes food available almost instantly. A few steps to a kitchen can provide more calories than some hunter-gatherers obtained during an entire day of searching. Because of that abundance, it is easy to assume that humans evolved expecting a large meal shortly after waking. The archaeological and anthropological evidence suggests a more complicated story. Researchers who studied hunter-gatherer societies discovered that daily eating patterns often differed dramatically from modern schedules. Richard Lee's work among the Jew/Honsi of southern Africa revealed lifestyles where food acquisition depended on seasonal conditions, successful gathering, and hunting luck. Meals were not always organized around fixed clock times. Instead, eating frequently followed opportunity. This pattern appears repeatedly across ethnographic research. Anthropologist Robert Kelly, whose work explores hunter-gatherer lifeways around the world, notes that mobile foraging societies often adapted their routines to local environments rather than rigid meal schedules. Food timing was flexible because survival demanded flexibility. But here is the strange part. Your body may still carry traces of those ancient rhythms. When the sun rose over prehistoric landscapes, the first task was not necessarily finding breakfast. Often it was assessing the environment. Was there danger nearby? Were animals migrating? Was water available? Had weather conditions changed overnight? Before calories could be consumed, information often had to be gathered. Imagine standing on an open savanna roughly 50,000 years ago. The grass is wet with morning dew. Visibility is improving as darkness fades. The horizon matters. Tracks matter. Sounds matter. A poor decision made during the first hour of daylight could threaten the entire group. In that context, immediate feeding was not always the highest priority. Scientists studying human metabolism have long been interested in how the body functions during periods without food. Humans possess remarkable abilities to remain physically and mentally capable despite temporary fasting. Energy stored in body fat can be mobilized. Hormonal systems help regulate blood sugar. Cognitive performance can remain surprisingly stable for extended periods. These abilities did not emerge by accident. They evolved in a world where food availability fluctuated. James Suzman, who spent years studying hunter-gatherer communities, describes how daily life often revolved around responding to environmental conditions rather than following industrial schedules. Modern clocks divide the day into predictable segments. Ancient landscapes rarely offered such predictability. You might assume constant hunger would have made people weak. The evidence tells a different story. Hunter-gatherers were often highly active. They walked long distances, carried resources, tracked animals, climbed terrain, and navigated challenging environments. If humans required an immediate morning meal to function, such lifestyles would have been far more difficult to sustain. Instead, the human body evolved systems that allow performance even when food has not recently been consumed. From an evolutionary perspective, that makes perfect sense. A species that became helpless after a few hours without eating would struggle in unpredictable environments. Archaeological evidence also provides clues about food acquisition. Excavations across prehistoric sites reveal extensive evidence of hunting, gathering, processing, and storage activities. Yet these activities frequently required time. Food often had to be found before it could be eaten. Everything changed depending on location. In some environments, edible plants might be gathered early in the day. In others, hunting opportunities determined meal timing. Coastal populations could organize activities around tides. Seasonal changes could completely reshape daily routines. There was no universal breakfast. There were only strategies. Consider a group preparing to track large game. Dawn may have represented the best opportunity to locate fresh tracks before sunlight altered the landscape. Delaying movement to prepare a substantial meal could reduce hunting success. In such situations, immediate action might provide greater survival value than immediate eating. The evidence from modern hunter-gatherer societies cannot perfectly recreate prehistoric life. Nevertheless, anthropologists use these observations as valuable windows into possible behavioral patterns. While every culture differs, many reveal flexibility that contrasts sharply with modern assumptions about meals. Wiessner's research among the Jews/Honsi highlights another fascinating element of human social life. Food was not merely fuel. It was deeply connected to sharing, cooperation, relationships, and community. Eating often carried social meaning beyond individual hunger. That social dimension may help explain another surprising fact. For much of human history, food consumption was frequently collective. Many modern breakfasts are solitary experiences. A quick meal before work, a coffee during a commute, a snack eaten while checking messages. Ancient meals often served different purposes. Sharing food reinforced alliances, distributed risk, and strengthened social bonds. The timing of meals, therefore, depended not only on biology, but also on social circumstances. Imagine a small group returning after a successful foraging expedition. The gathered resources are distributed. Conversations unfold around a fire. Stories are exchanged. Knowledge passes from older generations to younger ones. The meal becomes an event rather than a routine obligation attached to a specific hour. But here's where common assumptions begin to break down. Many people believe breakfast has always been considered the most important meal of the day. Historically, that idea is relatively recent. Agriculture transformed human life. Permanent settlements created new relationships with food production. Stored grains increased predictability. Work schedules became more structured. Over thousands of years, societies gradually developed meal customs that differed from those of highly mobile hunter-gatherers. Later, industrialization intensified the process. Factories operated according to clocks. Workdays became standardized. Mealtimes became standardized as well. Breakfast increasingly evolved into a scheduled event designed to fit economic routines. The deeper human story is far older than those systems. Your ancestors spent the overwhelming majority of human existence before factories, before alarm clocks, and before grocery stores. That perspective changes the question entirely. Instead of asking why ancient humans skipped breakfast, it may be more accurate to ask why modern societies became so attached to fixed breakfast routines. The answer involves agriculture, economics, labor organization, culture, and technology. Archaeologist Hayden has explored how food production transformed social structures. As communities became more sedentary, food storage expanded. Surpluses changed power relationships. Daily life became increasingly organized around predictable resources. Predictability changed eating. When food is constantly available, meal timing becomes a matter of preference and culture. When food must be acquired from the environment, timing often follows opportunity. The difference is enormous. Picture an Ice Age morning. Cold wind sweeps across a landscape dotted with sparse vegetation. A hunting party prepares to move. Every member understands the risks. Success may provide calories for many people. Failure may require adapting plans entirely. The emotional experience of hunger in that world was different from modern inconvenience. Hunger carried information. It signaled energy needs, but it also existed within a broader context of survival. People learned to function alongside it. They developed expectations shaped by uncertainty rather than abundance. Scientists investigating appetite regulation continue to uncover how complex these systems are. Hunger involves hormones, brain signaling, environmental cues, habits, and social influences. Many feelings associated with hunger are not driven purely by energy deficits. You probably experience some of those influences today. A clock strikes noon and hunger suddenly appears. A familiar commercial triggers cravings. A routine creates expectations. Culture shapes appetite as much as biology. Ancient humans lived under very different conditions. Their cues often came from landscapes rather than schedules. The evidence tells a fascinating story about adaptability. Humans can thrive across deserts, forests, grasslands, coastlines, and frozen environments. Such flexibility required behavioral flexibility as well. Meal timing was part of that flexibility. And that leads to the biggest surprise of all, The question is not whether ancient humans ate breakfast. Some certainly did. The question is whether breakfast existed as a universal biological requirement. The evidence suggests it did not. Human beings evolved to handle variation. Sometimes food arrived early. Sometimes it arrived later. Sometimes resources were abundant. Sometimes they were scarce. Survival depended on adjusting rather than following rigid rules. That adaptability remains embedded within your biology. It helps explain why humans can succeed under such a wide range of dietary patterns. Different cultures have developed different meal structures. Different environments have produced different traditions. Yet the same species thrives across them all. Modern debates about breakfast often search for a single answer. Should everyone eat immediately after waking? Should everyone wait? Should one approach apply to every person? Human history suggests caution with universal answers. The past reveals diversity rather than uniformity. Your ancestors survived not because they followed one perfect eating schedule, but because they adapted to changing circumstances. That lesson extends beyond food. Adaptability shaped migration, tool-making, cooperation, language, and survival itself. The ability to adjust behavior when conditions changed became one of humanity's greatest evolutionary advantages. When you look at prehistoric life through that lens, breakfast becomes something larger than a meal. It becomes a reminder that many modern habits feel ancient only because they are familiar. Some traditions are old, others are surprisingly new. The next time you wake up and reach for breakfast, consider the countless mornings experienced by your ancestors. Some began with food, some began with a hunt, some began with gathering, some began with uncertainty, yet all belong to the long human story that eventually led to the present day. You wake up before sunrise. Your stomach is empty, and what once seemed like a missing breakfast now looks like a window into how humans learn to survive an unpredictable world.